Everybody, welcome to another Python 3 recipe. In today's video we're going to talk about sequences, indexing and slicing in Python. So the problem statement here is, what are the various ways to index an element or a subset of elements in a sequence? And for that matter, we have here two sequences, a list, a string, and a list, which is basically the same string which is just casted into a list. And we want to see how, for instance, how do we just get this P here, or how do we get this T from T, H and O, how do we get this tree, what are the ways Python enable us to get this sub information from within the sequence itself. So without further ado, let's get a look at our first snippet. Let's run it and see what it says. So here, this is the syntax of indexing and slicing in Python. So we can say, if we want to get an information in a sequence, we can specify from the range, the start, the end, and the step. We will look at the step later, but for now let's focus on the start to the end. So here in this snippet, we are saying that in this string, the sequence S, we want to get from the 0th element to the 4th element. Similarly, for the list, we want to get from the 0th element to the 4th element. So let's count together. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you may expect 4 elements back, but hang on a minute. Here, when we look at the return values, we see just 4 elements, so P, Y, T and H. And similarly for the lists, what happened? Well, the thing is, in Python, sequences indexing are the end part of the syntax is not included in the interval. So end is excluded, which means that when you're saying get from 0 to 4, 4 is excluded, which means that in reality you're just getting from 0 to 3. So if you look at here, 0, 1, 2 and 3, that's what you get here. And same thing for strings. Then what about the step bit of the syntax? Well, let's run this second snippet to see what happens. When you're saying 0, get the sequence elements from 0 to 4, excluded again, but step by 2 every time, which means that when you're on this, let's say we consider the list, we say we want from 0 to 4 and we want to step by 2 each time. So 0, and then I will skip 1 and 2. So next one I pick is this one, and you may expect, if I skip again, so 1 and 2, you may expect to get the O. But the thing is, this O will be out of our bound because we are just getting from 0 to 4 excluded, which is from 0 till this and index here. But let's say we put, for instance, 6 here and see what happens. Indeed, we are getting the O, because if we consider the step that we are putting, the next element to get, if it's included in the range, will be O. So that is the step arguments of the syntax. The slicing indexing syntax is even more powerful. Let's say we want to get from the start the 3rd element and everything after that. We don't care, we don't even know what is the length of the sequence in the first place, but we just know that we want to start from the 3rd element. Well, the syntax allows us to do that. We just specify the start and we put a column, and everything after that will be picked by the indexing syntax and return in a new sequence. So if you look here, we say we want 0, we want to skip 0, we want to skip 2, 1, we want to skip 2, we want to skip, and we want to start at 3. So that's what is happening here. We are just getting these ones. And the same thing applies in the reversed order. So let's say we don't care everything that is after the 4th element excluded. So after the 4th element excluded once again, so which is after this, so starting from here we don't care. Well, in Python you can just specify by putting the column first and then you put the 4th element after, and which is basically you're ignoring the start, you're putting the end, you just say where you want to end, and everything before that is considered in the sequence that you return. And that's what happens here. We are saying we want to get everything up till this point, and which is we want to get all these subsequence here. And this snippet here, the next snippet, is one that you may actually want to remember because it's a very useful pattern in Python, and one that you may see in multiple codes if you do some code reviews. It's actually reversing the original sequence. So here we are putting an empty value for the start, an empty value for the end, which basically means in Python that we want to get everything in the sequence, but not only that, we want to get everything in reverse order. But let's say first we ignore this and see what happens. Let's say I remove this. You see we get everything, but let's say I put it back. We get everything but in reverse order. So the step, you're saying you want to step, but you want to step backwards, not frontward. So that's what this -1 here stands for. So here you see the P at the end and the 3 at the beginning. We have just reversed the sequence. Here, let's look at another much simpler case. Here we are just getting a single element in the list. Here you see we are just getting the first element, which is P, and one very important difference here is that we are just getting an element, not a sub list. You're just getting an element of the list, which is P, whereas all the examples before were returning sub list. So it's a very important distinction. If actually what you want is to get a sub list, what you have to do is something like that. You say, wait a minute, you have to consider that it's excluded. So what you have to do is this, to get the sub list with just one element. But if you just care about this specific element itself, in this case the first one, you just do this. And one more snippet is this one, just so you know, indexing in Python indices in Python can be negative values. So here we are getting from this string here, and we say index -1 and it returns the 3 here, which is Python way of telling you that -1 is also another way to say that you want to get the value at the last position. So similarly, if you want to get the value at before the last position, we just put -2. And that's why you get here the n, which is the one coming just before 3. So that's also another very handy pattern to know in Python. Indices can be negative value. So what about putting something that is out of bound? Well, Python will scream at you and tell you that the string index out of range, which is 50, is longer than the length. Basically the index you're trying to access is longer than the length of the sequence. So this sequence is shorter than 50 elements. There's no way in the world Python will get you a value in that sequence because there is no such value. And one thing before we wrap up with this recipe is something that I really like in Python, is that we can name our slices. So here, everything that we have done here, these are slices, this is a slice, this is another slice, this is a slice. But one thing that's really cool in Python is that you can create named slices. And to see why this may be useful, let's consider that we are trying to parse a CSV file containing at each line the name of a programming language, the inventor of that language, and the year at which the language was invented. And you are passing this file in many locations in your source code, in your code base. And for that matter, you don't want to have these slicing indices hanging around everywhere, which will make the code very not readable at all. For that, this is one particular case where named slices can be very handy. And to see that, let's run this snippet here. So as you can see here, we are actually passing this contain this CSV file line by line. Here, let's say we are at this line. This is what this for loop is for. We are at this line and we want to get specific information. Let's say we want to get the language. Here it means that we want to slice the line from here to here to get the actual language, which is taking the 0 from 0 to 15, and likewise from this for this line, and similarly for the third one. And if we are trying to get the inventor, it means get the slice from 15 to 27. So from here to here we get the inventor name, and similarly for the year of the invention of the language itself. Yeah, you agree with me, it's much readable than having this everywhere around in your code, which is not very clear what it means. And if you're reviewing someone's code, you will prefer, I think, to have it done this way than the other way around, because it's much more readable this way. So use name slices in Python. They're pretty cool. They make your code much more readable and easy to maintain and debug. Without it, we have reached the end of this video. Hopefully you learned something new. If the case, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to ask any question in the comment section down below. I'll make my best to answer those. And as always, you can find the code for a link for the code in the description of the video. Thanks you all for watching, and be sure to subscribe for the next video. See you guys.